Very good afternoon to, am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Very good afternoon to all my budding architects, today expert, Dr. Venu Shree, ma'am, Principal Dr. Srinivas from Hyderabad, and all my budding architects from our lovely School of Architecture and Design, right? So we welcome all my budding architects and our expert lecture for today, Dr. Venu Shree ma'am from National Institute of Technology, Hamirpur. Uh, we welcome on behalf of Lovely School of Architecture and Design, Lovely Professional University, Punjab. Lovely School of Architecture has got six best institute in India and first in Punjab by Outlook iCare ranking 2021 and 12th NIRF ranking in India and first in Punjab. You people are already aware about that. NIRF, that is the National Institutional Ranking Framework, that is NIRF, is a methodology adopted by the Ministry of Education, Government of India to rank institutions of higher education in India. Uh, we are in the era of the 21st century era, that is the smart cities, sustainable buildings, and contemporary interiors. So our graduates from lovely School of Architecture and Design are groomed to become lateral thinkers by focusing on the critical design approach. uh, Lovely School of Architecture and Design is emerging as a global center of excellence for research and innovation in the field of, in the world of architecture, design, and planning. And uh, other important thing is that we inculcate our budding architects, budding professionals, budding planners, budding interior designers in such a way that can design and do the execution of the particular uh, projects, buildings, and infrastructure which are globally, internationally recognized, globally acknowledged. Lovely School of Architecture and Design, uh, is a leading institution in terms of quality education, and it's also ranked by uh, different type of ranking agencies in our nation. And we provide the architecture education in such a way that our main focus to provide global attitude in local environment. So today. Uh, I am very thankful to Dr. Venu Shree, professor at National Institute of Technology, Hamirpur, and welcome, ma'am. And uh, today, topic of the talk is, uh, you know, elements for space making, principles of space making, right? So a space play very instrumental role in creating a particular design and creating any type of creation by the architect, by the designer, or by the planner. So welcome once again to all my budding architects, our expert, and our guest from Hyderabad, Dr. Srinivas ji. And over to you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Uh, um, I'm really obliged for a wonderful introduction. And I had prepared this lecture while keeping the standard of the students in mind. See, the audience, my dear students, you are in second semester of B.Arch, and now you are supposed to work on designing buildings. And building, in your previous semester, you have studied different elements of design and principles of design, right? Till now, you have understood that the elements of design are the ingredients, and the principle of design is the recipe of using those manner to design a building which is aesthetically pleasing. which is functionally satisfying and which is durable for a long duration also. Right? And here, now you are in advanced stage and you have to understand the elements with respect to the space making. Okay, so let's start with it.
Yeah, ma'am. Perfectly coming.
Perfectly coming, good sir.
Yes, yes. Please go ahead.
So my lecture, the contents of my lecture will be, first of all, I will give a very brief introduction of architecture. Then I will discuss on character of buildings. Then I will discuss different element of space making in that. So whenever I ask you what architecture is, your answer would be the architecture is an art and science of building spaces or enclosures and structure according to the rule of determining by the character one and the destination of the building. So there are two terminologies, character of a building and destination of the building. So what character is? Character indicates a particular style of a building. Okay, style of a building. Like we have a specific style in early traditional Indian architecture of temples and forts. We have a particular style of churches, mosques, offices, modern buildings, okay? Contemporary buildings. Every building has a particular style. And that style is related to the utilitarian aspect of the building. Utilitarian aspect of the building. What utilitarian aspect is? It is related with the function of the building, with the utility of the building, and with the durability of the building as well. Le Corbusier once said, every building should have a character, just like us, just like a human being. As every human being have their own individuality, similarly, every building should have its own character. And the character of a building may evolve from the suitable combination of aesthetics, principles of design to evoke certain visual and psychological responses of the user. User means the occupant of the building, the visitors of the building. Okay. And what principles of design are? You all know they are rhythm, balance, emphasize, proportion and scale, and movement, contrast, and unity. You have already studied it. So every building is constructed for a specific purpose, having specific form, and it should itself depicts its original function. The purpose, function is the purpose. So the designer should always kept in mind the character of the building in the entire design process. Being a designer, being an architect, being an artist, we should always keep the character in mind from the very first line or from the very first sketch of a new building. The exterior of a building should always express the internal function of the building, or I can say the purpose of the building. Therefore, the character of a building depends upon three main aspects. क्या है? First aspect is depend upon the use of the building, that is functional aspect. Second aspect depends upon the influence of traditional material from ages. So traditional aspect like you may find in churches, mosques, temples, right? And in forts. And the last third is the human quality or emotional appeal. So the functional aspect, which depends upon the use of building, shows the purpose of a building. The traditional aspect, the traditional character, depends upon the influence of the traditional material. As shown in the figure, this particular residence is from Goa, and they have a specific style of color on the facade, a specific style of roofing there. So they have their own traditional character of a building. And the personal character relates with the designer. Okay. In a single class, you can identify the architect, the designer of a particular building. Let's discuss in detail. So every building has a specific function, as we already know, and it is made for a specific purpose. Specific function is related with the in coordination with the exterior facade that tells us the purpose of the building. So the external appearance plays an important role in determining the purpose and the function of the structure. It refers a thought like if you visit a bank should look like a bank in a first appearance. A shopping mall should look like a shopping mall from outside. It should not look like a hospital. And a hospital should not look like a bank or a shopping mall. Designing skylights instead of windows can indicate a museum. If we design skylights instead of windows, can indicate a museum. And designing a long wall having numerous windows in a particular order can also indicate a museum. Designing tall and wide windows may suggest a library. And designing a symmetrical entrance to a central block having a wide entrance to express balance and rhythm indicates a public building. The massive structure in this picture, the massive structure indicates the stability of the economy of a particular country as it is a bank. And the series of windows here with a high-tech glass facade may indicate the advancement in the technology ready to serve for by a hospital to the users. Next is the character of some buildings is expressed through elements associated with certain influences. Such influences often go thousands of years back in history and culture. Cultural aspects play an important role in determining the associated character of a particular structure. We recognize a building by its features, which may associate with a particular structural style. As all these three pictures are of different style, and the spires at the top of this picture indicates a spacious building of a church, and a gopuram depicts a Hindu temple, whereas the crescent and wide domes is a symbol of mosque. So next and last type of character is personal character. Characters in architecture is comparable with the attributes of an individual. A building may be extreme and forbidding, light and playful, or sedate and dignified with reference to the impression it is capable of giving. If a building is designed in the proper spirit, personal characteristics such as grace, dignity, vitality can be expressed as an integral part of the structure. Each architect would express certain characteristics which make their own style, like Le Corbusier, Frank Lloyd Wright, Charles Fourier, etc. See, whenever you see this building, you can easily identify the architect of this building because it is a typical typical personal style of Frank Lloyd Wright of merging the structure with the nature. So this structure completely merged with the nature with the help of horizontal planes in roof and floors. Similarly, in the second picture, this is a specific style of Le Corbusier. Le Corbusier treats his buildings as sculpture. Okay, he uh, designed his building as a sculpture and placed the sculpture on a natural ground with the natural surrounding, and he exposes the unfinished concrete surface of the building. This is, and it is a specific style of him. So we can mark the building, we can relate the building with the style of the architect very easily. Second terminology is destination. So the destination of the building concerns the law and guidelines existing for the development of a particular area with respect to the site. So the planning laws corresponds to what a building is built for. The use of building corresponds to a factual element which related to what a building used for. So the bylaws, the development laws, national building codes, other regulations, they are related with the function. Function means the purpose of the building, and we have to follow those guidelines. And all these guidelines are related to the destination, means site of the project. Constructions that are impacted by the destination of the building are the agriculture construction, housing constructions, trade and service activities, employment of collective interest, and public services. For defining character of a building, for giving a character to the building, it indicates the building form as well as building envelope. So this consists of the dimension of space it encloses. The form of building naturally articulates the volume of space surrounding it and generates a field to influences that it claims as its own. So the concept of space are made physically apparent in architecture through different elements that consist of basic identifiable part of the man-made built environment. And these elements and the elements who address it are the horizontal plane, that includes the base plane, the floor plane, and the overhead plane, that is roof plane. The vertical plane means wall planes and the columns. Openings, that are doors and windows. So let's go to the horizontal plane. Horizontal plane have two parts. First is base plane or the floor. We may have an elevated floor, a grounded floor, and a depressed floor. And second horizontal plane is our overhead plane, that is roof. So the base plane is a horizontal plane, laying as a figure on a contrasting background, defining a simple field of space. This field can be visually reinforced in the various ways. There must be a perceptible change in color, tone, or texture between the surface of different plane and that of surrounding area. As you see in this picture, this is the base plane and it could be differentiated with the help of the color, tone and texture from the surrounding, and that surrounding is able to define its edge. In this particular side plan, we can differentiate the type of base plan by the texture, with the help of the texture. As you can see here, the designer has provided a natural floor and in contrast with the man-made floor. The sitting space outside of the building with the green space outside. So the horizontal plane will be well distinct if its edge defined strongly, as you can see in this picture. This carpet has a strongly defined edge. Although there is a continuous flow of space. Here we have a continuous flow of space. There is no change in height of the floor. So the continuous flow movement or flow of movement is there. But the field yet generates a spatial zone within its boundary. This space is visually separated with the help of the texture and color. If we look at the base plane as a movement guide, the surface articulation of the base plane is often used to define a spatial zone within a large context. It is a large context and the texture of the floor can be generates a variety of the floor surface, which as these tiles adds the movement in it, and this green cover added a sense of coolness in the landscape area. It also, the spatial definition of base plan differentiate between a path of movement and places of rest, as these are the places of rest and this is the path of the movement, and establish this field from which the form of a building raises out from the ground, out of the ground. Similar is the case in this particular picture. These patterns, the tiles are guiding the movement and the whole area is actually providing a field to generate this building form from it. Let's look at the floor as a movement guide. These are the Mughal gardens, which are perfect examples of movement guide. You have to follow the movement, the path created by the landscape, right? So in the Mughal gardens, the floor plan, the horizontal base plan is used as a movement guide to dictate your movement. Similar is the case with this. Second is floor, the base plane defining spaces. In this particular picture, the flooring pattern is itself defining individual spaces. The flooring pattern provided in each room is different from each other, and they itself defining a space within a space. Similarly, this particular floor pattern have a specific purpose and giving a specific boundaries. Next type of horizontal plane is elevated base planes. The relative position of one plane with other perceived as above and below of the reference plane. So if a ground plane at 0, 0 level, if the other plane is below it, it is known as depressed plane, and if it is above the reference plane of 0, 0 level, it can be named as an elevated base plane. As you can see in these pictures, it is this plane is raised from the reference plane, and therefore it is called elevated base plane, and this particular plane is depressed from the reference plane outside, therefore it is called depressed base plane. In Sun Temple at Konark, the threshold height is introduced. A huge threshold height of monumental scale has been introduced by elevating the base plane. So this is the reference plane at 0, 0 level, and the base plane, the floor has been raised up to a monumental scale to add the supremacy of the supreme power to the structure. Similarly, in the Chand Bauli at Rajasthan, this particular base plane has been depressed, has been dipped out to perform a particular function. It has a particular purpose. Okay. Elevated base planes, sometimes they add a degree to which spatial and visual connectivity is maintained between an elevated space and its surrounding. Depends on the scale of level of change. Scale of level of change means the level of change between two floors, between two horizontal planes. See, these two spaces has a visual connectivity. Similarly, it has a visual connectivity with this. They have a visual connectivity with each other, but there is no connectivity with the top floor. This is the picture of the interior space. So the space, however, the internal space, the internal green space is connected with each floor, each base, each horizontal plan visually. Elevating a portion of the ground plane establishes a platform that structurally and visually supports the form and the mass of a building. So this elevated floor is actually supporting the structure and the visual support. It is acting as a structural and visual support. The elevated ground plane can be a pre-existing site condition, or it can be artificially constructed to deliberately raise a building above the surrounding context to enhance its image in the landscape, as you have seen in Sun Temple. But here at Red Fort, it is a site constraint. So if you have a hilly site, if you have a contoured site, you will automatically get a elevated ground plane as a pre-existing site condition. But sometimes you have to increase this level. Elevated base plane plan floor expressing threshold. So in Hasselwara temple, the combined base plane, the combined elevated plinth is actually expressing the threshold height. Similarly, in Nehru Pavilion, the whole building is elevated on a base plane. And Panch Mahal is also an example of elevated horizontal planes. Depressed base planes. The degree of spatial continuity between depressed and raised plane surroundings depends on a scale of the level of change. Level of change between plane. So the depressed plane can be interruption of the ground floor plane and remain an integral part of the surrounding. If this scale of depression is more, it will provide a space, integral, but it would not be the integral part of the surrounding, which is there in this particular setup. And increasing the depth of the depressed plane weakens its visual relationship with the surrounding. As you can see here, in this particular section, there is no visual connectivity with the outside environment. Once the original base plane is above our eye level, the depressed field becomes a separate and distinct room in itself, as this depression is more than the average height of a human being. So this depression is visually become an individual space, and it has no connection with the surroundings. This is NIFT Hyderabad, and the depressed field can be an interruption of the ground plane and remain an integral part of the surrounding, as you can see at the entrance of NIFT Hyderabad. By this change in horizontal plane, the um, the architect has created a very interesting interacting space in the front. It is a multifunctional space which is used by the students for interaction and for their assignment exhibition. And this is the courtyard between three academic blocks in a U shape. So increasing the depth of the depressed field may weaken its visual relationship with the surrounding space, but strengthens its definition as a distinct volume of space, as we can see in this particular section. Once the original base plan is above our eye level, the depressed field becomes a separate and distinct room in itself. As you can see here, these are the sections of Indian Habitat Center OATs. Here, the depression is more. Therefore, these spaces are used as strengthened as distinct volume of spaces. Creating a stepped, terraced, or ramped transition from one level to the next help to promote continuity between a sunken space and the area that rises around it, like this. It is Bauli at Imambara, Bada Imambara, Lucknow, and Agassiz Ki Bauli at Delhi. We can see this transition in both the spaces. Next plan is overhead or roof plan. The major overhead element of a building is its roof plane. It shelters the interior spaces of a building from climate. Additionally, has a major impact on the overall form of a building and the shaping of its space. So the basic function of roof is to provide shelter from climate, from wind, sun, rain, etc. But it also transfers its load with the help of the vertical supports. The overhead plane offers a sense of enclosure beneath its structure and defines a field of space between itself and the ground plane. The overhead plane offers a sense of enclosure beneath its structure and defines a field of space between itself and the ground plane. So the form of the roof plane further is determined by the material, geometry, and proportions of its structural system and the manner in which it transfers its load across space to its support. And here are two examples of roof plane. Since the edge of the overhead plane establishes the boundaries of the field, its shape, size, and height above the ground plane determines the formal quality of the space. As you can see in these three pictures. If a vertical linear element such as columns or posts are used to support the overhead plane, they will aid in visually establishing the limit of the defined space without disrupting the flow of space like this. The flow of the space. So these columns are defining the edges of the roof, but they are not restricting flow of through edge. We have number of types of roof plane. The slab, the flat roof, inclined roof, curved roofs, folded plate roofs, membrane, and space frames. And these type of roofing actually depend upon the invention of the material and invention of the material with the passage of time, as well as the evolution of wisdom in man. As the first structure is was the natural structure. The natural caves which were available, we carved the shelter in it. Then with the introduction of the material, we were able to make some temporary structures like this. Then with the enhanced knowledge of material and skill, we had constructed we have constructed this type of structures with carvings and material. Then when new technology has been invented, we come to the high-rise buildings, use of glass to it, use of concrete, and Khajuraho temples is the example of highly curved skills. So this evolution is not as per the chronological order, but it is as per the enhancement in the knowledge of human being with respect to the material, with respect to the carving skills, with respect to their change in lifestyle. Let's see the evolution of roof in terms of spanning capability. So the flat roof conceived as a solid mass helped up by supporting system like it is visible in temples at Egypt, but that makes the limited knowledge of the material limits the distance between columns, whereas in the Pantheon, the spanning capability increased through corbel and lintel, where the gravity and material property were main consideration. In Hagia Sophia, with the same material they used is more efficient way with the help of arches, walls and dome. So when they are capable to understand making of efficient use of the material with the help of different technology, which is arches, walls and domes, they were able to increase the span of the building, because the purpose of the building in these three structures are were same, but the span, the internal span is different. So the evolution of church from form shows an attempt of lightening the support members, bringing the natural light in and increasing the open spaces in space with the help of construction technology. Evolution of roof with image maker. Image maker is directly related with the character of the thing. So development of the roof in secret and public building primarily started as a pragmatic approach of negotiating material span and to facilitate the collective nature of span. Like in Murangan temple, you can see a completely different style of roofing with use of vibrant color on it and with a specific style of carving. Okay, whereas at Saint Maria del Fiore Cathedral at Florence, the onion dome and the square tower with a symmetric balance shows a specific image of church. Similarly, in Taj Mahal also, and the Russian church, the onion domes on it with different colors of dome were able to make were able to introduce an individual image of the structure. Roof as a spatial enclosure. There are some structures where roof become a spatial enclosure. There would be no wall you found. You will found only roof, which actually enclosure the whole space. So the roof canopy ceiling provide an enclosing surface which defines the interior space dramatically. As you see in Lotus Temple, it has a square plan, a circular plan. Matra Mandir at Auroville, it is also a temple, but with an entirely different form. The exhibition pavilion at New Delhi, the whole space was covered with the help of a honeycomb structure in roofing. Hussain Toshi Gufa, there is only roof, there is no wall there. Okay. And the latest, the great building by Zaha Hadid, the Hyder Alien Center. There is only roof and roof. There is no wall. So Zaha Hadid is also known as a queen of curves. And she encloses the whole building with the help of a curve. Next, the vertical elements. So we have discussed the ground plane, the roof plane, and the next very important element, the vertical element, which actually defines a degree of enclosure to a space. And vertical elements are column and walls. In this picture, you can see there are three vertical elements. Vertical plane have a significant presence in our visual field than horizontal planes. Okay, vertical planes are more important because whenever we visit a space, our first vision is on wall. So therefore, more instrumental is defining a detached volume of space and providing a sense of enclosure and privacy for occupants. Vertical plane separate one space from other and establish a common boundary between the interior and the exterior environment. So vertical elements of form also plays a very important role in construction of the building. They serve as a structural support for floor and roof plane. They provide shelter and protection from climatic elements, and they also provide aid in controlling the flow of air, heat, and sound into the building, means ventilation. And these, the vertical element, the smallest vertical element, the column, they, without having a complete enclosure, columns are have a great potential of marking a space. As you can see in these figures, only columns without having a continuous wall can demark a space, can visually covers a space into it like this. And the vertical linear elements define a perpendicular edge of a space. As you can see in the Taj Mahal, these minarets are actually defining a perpendicular edge of a space. So with the help of these minarets, the scale of the Taj Mahal has been increased. So we have four type of vertical element. Vertical plane. Single vertical plane articulates the space on which it fronts. See, if you have the single vertical plane, so towards which it fronts depicts a space. A vertical plane has a frontal quality. Its two surfaces or faces front on the establish the degree of two separate and distinct spatial fields. As you can see at Saint Augustina, Rome, the one plane. Rest of the building is not cannot be seen, but the front plane is actually demarcating the front of the building, the vertical single vertical plane. Similarly, India Gate at Delhi is also showcasing this character. And Arch of Septimus at Rome is also a very bold example of this type of single vertical plane. L-shaped plane. An L-shaped configuration of vertical planes generates a field of space from its corner like this, from this corner. The introverted field at the interior corner becomes extroverted along its outer edge, like this outer edge. You can see in this particular composition of wall plane and base plane, if we introduce an opening here by sliding this plane, this type of sliding will loses the degree of closeness, the degree of enclosure to it. It all become a free space. And this L-shaped plan is an example of L-shaped enclosure in which the L shape in the L shape the building block is placed with connection with the adjacent ground. Soft place. And Kingo Housing Estate demarcated the combination of L-shaped planes throughout the site plan. Next type of vertical planes are parallel planes. The two vertical planes defines a volume of space between them that is oriented axially towards both one end of the configuration. The two planes. So they are not connected with each other. They are with they both are two separate identities, but they uh, they they defines a space significantly. Nave of a basilican church is a very good example of it. And when we connect these two parallel planes with either with the help of the column or with the help of a roof, the degree of enclosure will be enhanced. A U-shaped configuration of vertical planes. A U-shaped configuration of vertical planes define a field of space that has an inward focus as well as an outward orientation. At the closed end of the configuration, the field is well defined towards the open end of the configuration. This is the open end of the configuration, and the field becomes extroverts in nature. Okay, so these three are the closed, but it is open from one towards one side like this. The temple, the plan of temple Nemesis is a very good example of U-shaped planning. This is the plan B of different scale of different building of this campus. And we can always add a moment between these three planes by sliding one plane from one side like this. Like this. So this type of opening may add a moment in a particular space. U-shaped planning can be seen significantly in Piazza del Campodia at Rome and Mayur Chowk in City Palace at Udaipur. And the four planes enclosure. The four vertical planes establish the boundaries of an extroverted space and influence the field of space around the enclosure. As you can see in this picture, all four planes are close together like this, and here one enclosure under another enclosure can be seen. And for this we have different typology for variation: the straight plane, the curved plane, and the leaning plane. Four vertical planes establish the boundaries of an introverted space and influences the field of the space around it. And you can see a rectangular enclosure at the plan of Ibaram, tomb of Sultan Ibrahim, Bijapur, India. And in curved form, we can have a look of Lotus Temple at New Delhi, in which the main plan of the building is in circle. And yes, Colosseum is a very good example of it, of curved surface. The four vertical plane establish the boundaries of vertical plane wall. In this particular slide, I want to talk about the wall as a protective barrier. We have two great examples of using wall as a protective barrier. One is a Great Wall of China and another is Kumbhalgarh Fort. That is known as a Great Wall at Rajasthan, or in some literature it is mentioned as a Great Wall of India. And the purpose of both the walls is same. They are used as a protective barrier to define the periphery of the kingdom. Walls may also used as a thin transparent plane, differentiating the indoor environment from the outdoor. Crystal Palace, London is a good example, along with the glass house in a botanical garden at Lal Bagh. They both are showcasing the introduction of new material, new technology to the building, and provides a very thin transparent plane wall, the vertical element, wall with display and storage. These type of niches are very common in traditional buildings, and residences till date. These displays the function of a wall as storage and as a display. The traditional temples, the wall of traditional temples has been used as a display of stories. So these walls has already been used as a storyteller.
Hello, ma'am. I think ma'am was disconnected. Hello, Venu Shree, ma'am. Ma'am was disconnected, my dear budding architects. So I am trying to contact with Venu Shree, ma'am. Uh, please join again, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
I don't remember where I left the connection.
You are just displaying the wall as a storage and display.
Okay, okay.
Wall as a storage and display. I think you are here.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we
Please
were
continue, ma'am.
discussing. Okay, okay, sir. So I was discussing the wall as a display and storage. These type of niches can be seen throughout the history. We can see these type of niches in chaityas, in forts, in temples, even in churches, in all type of traditional buildings. And the wall has been treated as a display or as a storyteller in our ancient temples. As you can see in Prabhana temple, Odisha, and temple of Hosal Holam. Next, I am discussing the opening in space. So the openings in the enclosing planes of any spatial field is necessary to provide spatial as well as visual connectivity. We have a one enclosure of space, and we have in any building we need to connect one space with other space. And for that, we have to connect, we have to introduce any type of opening between them. Okay. And how many type of openings we have? We have two type of openings, windows and doors or arches. So windows allow light to penetrate the space and illuminate the surface of a room. It offers views from the room to the exterior. Window establish visual connection between indoor environment and the outdoor and adjacent environment. Additionally, a window provides the natural ventilation of the space, which is very important for the dilution of indoor pollution. Okay. And introduction of fresh outdoor air into a particular space. Next, door. Door offers an entry into space or a room and influence the pattern of movement. Opening, depending on the size, number, and location, may also weaken the enclosure sense of enclosure, or I can say degree of enclosure of the space. As you can see in this particular layout, the spatial this is a space which is enclosed by four walls. And to connect this particular space with other space, we have to introduce a door or a window. And these two openings are actually dictating the introduction of light and ventilation into this space. When we place two openings in front of each other, they are also, in addition to connecting one space to other, they are these two identical openings are actually dictating the movement of the path also. And these four openings, in this particular layout, we actually lost the sense of enclosure, the degree of enclosure, because there is a movement on all the walls. So there will be no arrangement of furniture is possible on these axes, on these two axes. These diagonal openings are comparatively more protected as we get two L-shaped corners for adjusting the function of the space. But here the whole space has gone in movement only. This movement and this movement is good for exhibition galleries where we have to display all the things on the wall. These openings, too many openings in a small space, but the single opening with a window on this in the front of the door is good to lit a particular space and provide a cross ventilation. Window within plane. Window can be provided in three manners. First style of providing window is providing a window within a plane. If we treat a plane of any wall as a vertical plane, so we can provide a window on it by placing it at a center or off center, or we can group 2-3 windows together. We can deep set one window, or we can provide a window on sky, which is called skylight. An opening located wholly within a wall or a ceiling plane often appears as a bright figure on a contrasting field or a background. It's centered within the plane. The opening will appear stable and visually organize the surface around it. In this plane, you can see this. Moving the opening off center. As soon as we make off center this particular window, it will create a degree of visual tension between the opening and the edge of the plane towards which it is moving. इसी के along ही move किया. So the shape of the opening is similar to the shape of the plane in which it is located. It will create redundant compositional pattern. When the shape and the orientation of the opening may contrast with the enclosing plane of emphasis, its individuality as a figure. The singularity of the opening may be visually reinforced with the heavy frame or articulated trimwork. Multiple openings like this. Multiple openings may be clustered to form a unified composition within a plane, or be a staggered or dispersed to create visual movement along the surface of the plane. As an opening, as an opening within a plane increases in size like this, it will at some point ceases to be a figure within an enclosing field and become instead a positive element in itself, a transparent plane bounded by a heavy frame. Opening within planes naturally appear brighter. Okay, like this. These openings naturally appear brighter as they allow lighting into the space, as they are illuminating the spaces. If the contrast in brightness along the edge of the opening becomes excessive, the surface can be illuminated by a second light source from within the space, or a deep set opening can be formed to create illuminated surfaces between the opening and the surrounding plane. Opening at corner openings. The corner openings give a space and the plane in which they are located a diagonal orientation like this. So the corner opening may be established to capture a desirable view of bright and a dark corner of a space. The corner openings visually erodes the edge of the plane. The corner openings like this, they actually changes the edge of the space, edge of the plane in which it is located, and articulates the edge of the plane. It also articulates the edge of this particular plane, adjacent and perpendicular to it. Large opening, large opening like this can weaken the, the sense of uh, corner on the edge, but the light that enters a space through a corner opening washes the surface of the plant adjacent and perpendicular to the opening. This illuminated surface, this illuminated surface can be enhanced further by turning the corner with the opening or adding a skylight above it. Adding the skylight like this above it. So a vertical extended opening. This vertical extended opening towards roof from floor to ceiling plan visually separates and articulates the edge of the adjacent wall plane. If located at a corner, the vertical opening will erode the definition of the space and allow it to extend beyond the corner like this, beyond the corner to the adjacent space. It will also allow incoming light to wash the surface of the wall plane perpendicular to it and articulate the primacy of that plane in the space. Next type of opening can be provided between planes, means horizontal and the vertical and the horizontal plane. So a horizontal opening that extends across a wall plane will separate it into number of horizontal layer. One layer, one, two, three layer, one, two, three layer. Okay. If opening is depth, It increases to the point where it is greater than the bands above and below. As you can see, two bands, one is above and one is below the window band. Then the opening will become a positive element bounded at its top and bottom by heavy frames. The turning a corner with a horizontal opening reinforces the horizontal layer of a space and broadens the panoramic view formed within the space. If the opening continues around the space like this, if the opening continues around the space, it will visually lift the ceiling plane from the wall plane and isolate it and give it a feeling of lightness. Locating a linear skylight, next is skylight, along the edge where a wall and ceiling plane meet allows incoming light to wash the surface of the wall, illuminates it, and enhance the brightness of the space. The form of the skylight can be manipulated to capture direct sunlight and indirect daylight or a combination of both. Direct sunlight can be entered from it like this, and indirect can also be allowed. So these are the bibliography of this presentation. I had referred Elements of Design by Yatin Pandey and Form, Space and Order by Francis TKG. So this is all. I am open to questions now. Thank you for your patient hearing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Really wonderful presentation. Really, we are hoping that the students, our first maximum first year students of our institute have joined for the session. Uh, so uh, uh, today, today, along with us, also we have Hyderabad, basically. Sir have also joined whole session. So I'll before starting the question answer session, I want to invite Professor C.H. Srinivas, Head of the Department Architecture from JNFU Hyderabad, Jawahar, Jawaharlal Nehru Architecture Fine Arts University Hyderabad. Welcome, sir. Welcome in the session. And on behalf of Lovely School of Architecture for share your views regarding the architecture profession and whatever the lecture you have observed, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon to all of you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very good afternoon, sir. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, very good afternoon. It's been a very good initiative from Mr. Narayan, architect, and Madam who was presenting. It was extremely good information that she was giving over the last 40-45 minutes. It was a essential basics for the budding architects, which has to be understood by them first theoretical level, and then they have to get into practically observing the things. So one best part of Madam's presentation was she was also showing the examples which the
Yeah,
students
yeah.
relate to, and then the third level probably you can give an assignment for the students to locally find such examples live and take pictures and explain to the students. So I just had one small remembrance of my earlier studio, which long back we did once, probably
Sir,
20
sir.
years or so. The same aspect relating to circulation of spaces, and we followed the textbook pattern that time, Francis Ching's Form, Space and Order. And the circulation chapter itself we have divided into number of topics, about 20 topics to all the students. So three students together, they presented these topics, and Then the instruction that was given is theoretically understand from Francis Ching and other composition books. And second thing is observe the sketches that are given by Francis Ching and other places, gather them together and put it together, which are abstract representations of the concept, and then get down to examples. And the examples would be world best examples anyway, will be given by Francis Ching and other places. And then look at local examples. So
Right.
that, yeah. So there was talking about spiral kind of circulation. Then, I mean, one of the topic was spiral kind of circulation. So I thought students will not be able to, find anything like that, because you have in the Guggenheim Museum alone that spiral.
Yes. Yeah.
Found that interesting spiral kind of circulation in our city relating to Birla Mandir. Our heart of the city, we have on a hillock the temple which is constructed by Birla, which is called as Birla Mandir, which had
Right.
a circle pattern like almost spire. So like that, students, we cannot underestimate the students' capabilities. Once we make them keenly observe, they get into. I mean, this is the benefit of all the students: keenly observe the surroundings and come up with live examples of what the concept is trying to tell you, so that it will be internalized and you'll remember it forever, and you start using it in design, and then it will be very enriching kind of an experience. So I really congratulate Madam for her extremely good effort in trying to put these basics into the minds of the young budding architects. Thanks a lot for the opportunity, and I'm very thankful for giving me chance, and also my students. I hope they're all viewing through this. My third semester students, presently our third semester is going on.
Yes,
Those
sir.
students who viewing this presentation through your YouTube link. Thanks a lot, and looking forward for some more association with your
Yeah. Definitely, sir. Definitely. Thank you very much, Professor Srinivas, sir. Basically, today we have contacted, talked, and this is a great opportunity for all of us that we will try to associate with our budding professionals and professional principal and academician profession, any type of thing like you. So we will try to be in contact in future. Thank you once again for giving your valuable time for us. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now, Venusri ma'am, really you have presented wonderful presentation, and we are hoping that our all budding architects have, gained much knowledge. You have explained very nicely regarding the, horizontal plane and floor as a movement guide, right? Elevated plane, and you have also given the example like Sun Temple, Konark, floor expressing uh, floor expressing depressed plane. You have also given the example Chand Bawri, Rajasthan. There are step wells in Gujarat, right? And when we talk about the elevated and depressed plane, so one sun temple is the best example, right? So that is the Modhera Sun Temple. That is in presently Mehsana district of Gujarat state. Modhera Sun Temple, Modhera. That having temple form as a elevated plane, as well as the Jalkund, that having depressed plane. So that is also the example. You also have given the nice example. Basically, the presentation beauty is whatever you have presented, basic elements or basic principles, you have given the nice example also. So that is
Yes.
also very helpful for all of us. You have also evaluated evolution of roof with image maker, roof as a special type of enclosures, right? And type of vertical elements, four plane, four plane closures. You have given the example of lotus temple, right? And protection wall as well as wall as a three trunk. I mean, you have talked all about where architecture students required for enhancement of the particular spaces and plan things that is part and parcel of our life as a budding architects or as an architect or as a rising architect. Thank you very much, ma'am, once again. So now we will open the session for question answer session.
Yes.
Students, we have also this session, Mustafizur Rahman ji. Mustafizur sir, you are here? Okay. So, a student, if any student want to ask any question, either drop your question in the chat box or you can directly talk. Anyone? Inakshi, Inakshi Guleria, Nilima, S. Nilima, Bindu, Inanka Jaiswal, Rinku Pradhan. Anyone, any student? If you want to directly interact, I
Yes,
think
you are not.
I am not audible.
No, sir. The student. No, sorry. Your co-teacher. I think Mr. Rahman is your co-teacher. Is it so?
Yeah. Rahman to everyone, wait. Rahman sir, I am audible or not? I am audible, ma'am?
Yes, sir. You are audible,
Yes.
but Rahman sir is not audible.
Okay, maybe network issue from
Yeah.
his side. Okay, some we have got message. I think I am not audible. Okay, some maybe network issue. Any student? Inakshi, ma'am, one student have dropped the question.
Yes. What could be the initiate step of begin
While
with
designing a
while
space,
designing a space?
right?
You are actually asking about the conceptualization of the development, design development.
Hmm.
There are many ways to start development of your design. First is the functional aspect. If you are looking to satisfy the functional aspect of a design, you have to go with the purpose of different spaces. First of all, you have to list out the purpose of different spaces, that is called spatial requirement of the project, and you have to mark the volume of the space, and then you have to decide the combination of the space with each other. For this, we generally use flow diagram. Okay,
Okay.
I am telling you the functional approach. Okay, then after that we used to introduce the openings um, to connect one space to other plane and come with a specific form. However, if you want to approach a building from some traditional style, okay, so you have to select the design element of that particular style and start putting those elements to your volume space. ठीक है, अपना form, whatever shape form you are selecting for your particular design, you have to start putting those elements to your design. But first of all, you have to think of the function and the purpose of spaces and their connectivity. Then only you can come to the next one, the traditional character or the personal character. The personal character of a building, if you want to give a personal character to a building, you have to identify, you have to select the material, you have to select the color or texture or form and shape of the building accordingly, which could define your personality as an architect, your style of designing as an architect. So the first thing you kept in mind is form, whatever your form is, whatever your character is, it should follow the function of the building.
Form
Form
and shape
follows
of the
function.
building according, which could
Okay.
define.
Any more question, student?
Anyone else want to ask?
Yes, Ameg Ajay, Rinku Pradhan, Dinanka Jaiswal, anyone? Yeah, Rinku Pradhan have written, ma'am, dropped my question. Should we focus more on comfort of living space?
Or
Can I go through?
appearance?
Can I go through, ma'am?
Yes, yes. Yes,
Should
yes, sir.
okay, okay,
Uh,
okay, please.
okay, or design of the living space or design. Our first aspect while designing, our first aspect should provide a comfortable indoor environment to its user, right? While providing healthy and productive indoor environment. Okay, understood? So you have to provide a comfortable indoor environment to the occupant while ensuring healthy and productive. When your environment will be healthy and productive, when you will be able to illuminate your indoor efficiently, when you will be able to provide proper ventilation to the interior, okay, when you will able to provide a proportionate and aesthetically pleasing indoor and outdoor environment to your building. So all these things are interconnected. You are going to provide the same window, but if you provide that window as uh, as per the proportions to satisfy the aesthetic hunger of human being, your building will satisfy a main the basic requirement of the occupant while providing lighting and ventilation to the indoor. Therefore you cannot drop even a single concept. All these considerations should go hand in hand. You have to take care of all the things. Okay, Rinku Pradhan, I hope I am able to address your question properly.
Rinku, you are here? Rinku? Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Already written in the chat box. Any more question to all my budding architects? Okay, so okay, so Professor Rahmanji, over to you now. You are audible?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Thank you, finally. So first of all, I would like to thank our HOD Nagendra sir for giving me an opportunity to speak on this occasion. On behalf of entire Lovely School of Architecture and Design, I would like to thank the expert speaker, Dr. Venu Shree ma'am, for wisely and carefully introducing this principle.
Thank you.
Students. This is very fundamental thing and required thing for the students. I also thank very special guest, HOD Architecture from JNAFAU, Hyderabad, Professor Srinivas. I thank all the students who have joined us in this gathering. So now we come to the end of this gathering. We hope all have very good evening. On behalf of the organizing committee and the audience, I once again thank the speaker of the day for all the valuable info she shared with us. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you all.
Thank you, Rahman. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahman sir, and thank you, ma'am, Venu Shree ma'am, really, and thank you, Srinivas sir also. So today how this is the beauty of our nation, na? Dr. Venu Shree ma'am have joined from NIT Hamirpur, Himachal Pradesh.
Yes.
I and Rahman have joined from Punjab, and our fellow professor Dr. Srinivas sir have already joined with from Hyderabad. So this is the beauty of our nation basically, and
Yes.
we have a student also from whole part of our nation. So very shortly, okay. Very shortly, we will organize the another session for all our budding architects. And now, where are you? Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye bye. Take care. And
Thank you, sir.
yeah. Very shortly, our university is also going, in physical mode very shortly on coming 15th Feb. So